What's up, guys? Welcome into another episode of the Machine Heads interview series here on the Compact Equipment YouTube channel and compactequip.com. So today we've got a really good one for you. We're going to be continuing our conversation series around the mini skid steer category of machine, and we're going to be speaking specifically with our friend Brad Stemper, who is the North American Product Management Lead for construction equipment at Case Construction Equipment. So Case is one of the newer entrants, probably the newest entrant to the mini skid steer category of machines with the new TL100. So that's what we're going to be discussing with Brad today, the TL100, the response to that machine so far, what it was like entering this category, why Case wanted to enter this category right now, and just kind of a little bit about the market for these machines in general with Brad. So really good conversation, really enjoyed it. Without further ado, let's get into this conversation with Brad Stemper of Case Construction Equipment. Brad Stemper, thank you so much for joining us for another Machine Heads conversation today. Brad is the product manager or the North American Product Management Lead for construction equipment for Case. Brad, welcome into Machine Heads, and how are you doing today, man?
I'm great, Wayne. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thank you so much for being here. Really cool topic. I know this was a really cool machine release for you guys at ConExpo 2023. I'm excited to kind of dig into this guy and see how it's going for you guys. But I want to start with kind of discussing the segment around it. Mm-hmm. Of course, you guys released the TL100 last year, introduced it last year. So let's talk a little bit about that stand-on / mini skid steer segment itself. You know, obviously over the last several years, this kind of grew from some really entrenched kind of brands that had been doing it for a really long time, and then there were some kind of new entrants that kind of stirred the pot a little bit and got people thinking about maybe some different design features, and maybe I want to say kind of like maybe standardizing like what a single model lineup might look like for what that might, like that Goldilocks design of a mini skid might look like.
Sure.
Lots of stuff has happened in this segment over the last several years. What do you guys within Case, whenever you decided to launch the TL100, which is a 1,000 pound capacity machine, mm-hmm. Whenever you guys were looking at this segment and deciding whether or not to jump in, what were the things about it that excited you about this segment? What were kind of the growth factors that you guys were, that you liked about it? And, what do you attribute all this growth that this specific segment has seen over the last several years?
Absolutely, Wayne. All great questions, things to definitely talk about. And so stop me or ask if you have anything come up to mind as we keep going here. So as we approach the mini track loader industry, the stand-on skid steer industry, it really comes down to ease of use and simplistic controls. The operators that are running these machines really leverage the opportunity to get on and off of this machine repetitively, to do miscellaneous things around the machine while they're doing the actual work with the machine. And that standing platform is really kind of what is changing the industry and causing this segment, this product line, to grow so extensively, so quickly. Like I said, the simplicity of use, really driving anybody to be able to get on and get the feel of what this machine does, how the controls work. It's very responsive, yet it's also forgiving in the sense that since your hands are right there in front of you, kind of running the machine, you can feel the ebb and the flow of the machine, the movement underneath you, and you can really maintain control of that machine while you're operating over uneasy or inconsistent terrain. So it really allows, or it really decreases that learning curve for everyday operators to jump on and really be productive. So we're seeing a lot of application in rental. We're seeing a lot of application in contractors, landscapers, agricultural companies that are driving to more and more inexperienced operators coming onto their job site and supporting their work. So we like what it stands for as a product line that engages the operator, allows them to learn on the machine, and creates so much more versatility. Okay.
Man, that's great. Yeah, those are all fantastic points. I mean, and just for like, I think everybody will have a different reason for joining the segment, but for you guys, I mean, I think all those things make a lot of sense, especially
Sure.
in terms of that learning curve. I mean, that's one of the first things that I noticed about these machines, and in terms of as they were. I don't know. I feel like as those kind of like launches for these machines kind of started to kind of pile up, and more folks were starting to enter the segment. One of the things that I had not operated one, compared to like a compact track loader or a skid steer or something like that, nearly as frequently as those machines. And
Yeah.
you know, obviously with the growing capability of those machines and kind of like all the tools that are available for those, and being able to, it is really powerful. Just about any time I've had work in the last several years done, at home even,
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, like those guys are not having to haul in a Bobcat anymore. They're just pulling in a reasonably sized, mini skid stand on, that they can throw a tool on and, hop on and off. So like, yeah, absolutely. From you guys' standpoint, when you were going into the TL100, um, I was kind of mentioning earlier, kind of like maybe like the standardization of like a Goldilocks model. And so when you guys were creating that TL100, what were some of those design aspects or feature that you felt like, okay, we're going to have, for a little while at least, we're going to have a one model lineup. So it needs to kind of be a jack of all trades for certain folks. Why? Tell me about that 1,000 pound kind of capacity mark, and what were some of the other things that you guys were really kind of focusing on as like a something that would do several years and maybe reevaluate along the line if you wanted it to have brothers or sisters. But like right now,
Sure.
the single model, yeah. Tell me about some of those features.
Well, it really comes down to its capability to do work, right? If you make it too large, it can't fit into people's backyards or get into narrow entryways. If you make it too small, it can't lift things like pallets of sod or pallets of brick that might be going into someone's hardscape, things like that. So that 1,000 pound class is really a great sweet spot for the application of these motorized, mechanized machines, right? Compact track loaders, skid steers tend to be larger just because of how much footprint they have, right? And
Yeah.
it wasn't too long ago that those were the small machines on the job site. Well, I think people are recognizing that getting smaller machines like mini excavators that go down, sub 2 ton class, compact or mini track loaders like this, and even small articulated loaders are really increasing productivity. So when we looked at it, the design aspects that really went into this were inherently drawing on the DNA of those skid steers and compact track loaders, like auxiliary hydraulics, thumb controlled, bidirectional flow, stability even. It's making that that operator comfortable. One of the things that we went into in the design and product definition stage of this was we tested a lot of machines. We put them into a lot of different applications. We did blind clinics and really got a lot of perception. And we really wanted this machine to feel right underneath the operator. I think some of the machines out there drive to the lift capacity or the speed on the ground and things like that. We wanted that thing to be very stable and very well balanced underneath the operator so they don't feel a lot of porpoising, so you don't have that leverage, that cantilever point where it might feel like it's tossing you up off the platform that you're standing on. So we put a lot of time and effort into those types of inherent design capabilities, right? Stability, performance in the lift, that good range of what we need to do on a job site, and the auxiliary hydraulics. But then we also looked at what a primary manufacturer of construction equipment can bring to the table. I'll be honest and say some of our competitors are shortliners. They're small brands. They've got a couple of products that might be very focused on landscape and garden and lawn. And a lot of those applications don't necessarily inherently bring in quality or reliability features. One of the things that we designed into our machine is a tip over switch. So if that machine were to get unstable because someone puts it a little bit heavy, it's great and easy and safe to use. But if they do that and it's in a way that it might lean too much or even go up too steep of a hill or tip too much because of overloading on the front, we want that engine to shut down. So we designed a shutoff switch inside the engine that kills that engine and limits it from pumping without oil lubrication. So that was one of those things that we kind of learned and picked up, and that we wanted to design into the machine to give that value to say this machine will protect itself as much as you want to protect it.
Yeah, man, and I would say that there is, for all the good that goes into it being very approachable. I will say that it can instill like a false sense of confidence, because I've seen guys hop on those things and be like, oh wow, I can just whip this thing around, do whatever I want, and then learn very quickly it is not the same physics as that are going into kind of like, a much larger machine with a bigger center of gravity. So
Yeah.
that's an awesome feature for sure.
Yeah.
In terms of some of those things that you guys keyed in on, I kind of wonder, some of the established brands had, before, I would say probably like, I don't know, like 30 or 40% of the current market landscape in terms of like
Mm-hmm.
the volume of manufacturers. The two or three that were really established, I mean, had really big lineups that went everywhere from 500 pounds all the way up to like 3,000, some machines up to 3,000 pounds of lift capacity.
Sure.
And I think it was kind of like this just kind of like a skid steer or CTL would have all kinds of like capacity needs.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of the thinking there. Now it really seems like when the segment reoriented, it really reoriented around that 1,000 pound lift capacity, because you're just able to kind of dial in, like you said, the stability, the width, the ground pressure, all those really. Do you guys do you guys see that, or do you think that was just kind of, I guess, just a coincidence that everybody's putting out one that, like, tell me a little bit about why you think those design priorities have changed and kind of reoriented seemingly around that 1,000 pound capacity over the
Yeah,
last
yeah.
year.
Great question, Wayne. As it comes down to it, I think it's a few factors, right? It's one, how much work do you really need that machine to do when you're bringing it into someone's backyard, or even when you're doing demo inside of a building, right? In a large commercial complex or something, that you can just bring it in and kind of take material out and things like that. When it comes down to it, is the machine can only inherently do a certain amount of work, right? You go larger, everybody wants to go larger, but then it just becomes much larger and much bigger and much more weight to carry on a trailer. The 1,000 pound machine is really optimally fit so that just about anybody with a pickup truck can carry this machine. If you can get it into the bed of the pickup, or you have a small trailer that you pull behind it, there's no extra certification, there's no CDL or anything like that that's necessary. You also have the benefit of being a low enough horsepower class that you don't have emission standards and driving, those kinds of needs on that 1,000 pound capacity. So I think the industry kind of saw an opportunity to go larger in specific applications, even replacing skid steers and compact track loaders at the very small end of the spectrum with one of these stand-on machines. And you can see that on the upper echelon, these, the smaller volumes in the 1,700, 1,800, up to that 3,000 pound machine that you were talking about, do fit a niche, but it is still a niche. These 1,000 pound machines are really optimally sized for that 25 horsepower and below class to give you the most amount of benefit, the most amount of lift capacity, the most amount of power to drive around the weight of the machine to make it stable, without going into that next layer of, okay, what do we have to do for emissions? What kind of control standards do we need? And things like that. And so from that aspect, I think that 1,000 pound size class really, like I said earlier, hits that sweet spot of how much can I do with this machine? How easy is it to operate and transport and get around to different jobs without making it too big, or without necessarily impacting all the additional costs that might go into emissions regs and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, great points. I mean, and again, I do think that at the end of the day, one of the big key features to this thing really is just like not just its approachability, but just its versatility. It really,
Mm-hmm.
even if you think about like the CTL or the skid steer and their versatility, kind of elevating that versatility and that transportability and getting it into space, certain spaces, just elevating the good parts of those machines even further, because you're kind of packing that capability into a much smaller footprint.
Yeah.
Before we get on too much longer here, I want to let's go ahead and let's get into the TL100 itself.
Okay.
Take us through. You've kind of touched on some of the design priorities that you had. Obviously, everybody listening right now knows that it's a 1,000 pound machine. But when you guys were tell us about like, some of the things that you think you guys had the benefit of coming in to, I would say, early on in maybe the reconfiguration or the renaissance of this segment around that 1,000 pound. You had some time though to kind of like think about how you guys wanted to create that 1,000 pound machine. So given even like I think we've established kind of like what the new configuration of this market is and that Goldilocks 1,000 pound kind of capacity. Tell us like what you guys you've hit on some of these already, but walk us through the key features of the TL100. What you really think kind of like makes this machine stand out, and why what you think that it's really going to grab people's notice whenever they hop on and try it for the first time.
Absolutely, Wayne. So as you mentioned, I already kind of touched on some of them, right? Pilot controls, easy, simple to use. They do give a little bit of feedback. So an operator can kind of feel what the machine is doing, a little bit more than something like an EH control driving complete, fly-by-wire kind of control system. Single levers, they're two little pods that you kind of hold on to. And we went through iterations of those joystick handles. We had taller ones, we had shorter ones, we had different configurations of the bracketing that you kind of rest your wrist on or grab with your fingers and kind of pull forward with and stuff like that. And what we drove to is a very simplified control that you can operate in a variety of ways, right? You can kind of pinch it between your fingers. You can use the palm of your hand and use your fingers to kind of balance you. What we recognized and what the industry kind of recognized is that when you're standing up on that platform, you need that stability. The machine needs to give you a fair amount of stable platform to be on, but you also need to be able to hold on, right? You don't have your butt in a seat that's kind of taking a lot of the movements. And so from that perspective, we needed to give those joystick handles a proper validation. So we got a variety of them out. We got them in front of people. We gave people, configurations to kind of play with, thumb control spots, things like that. So we spent a lot of time on that, okay? We also went down the path of standard auxiliary hydraulics and standard thumb control for those auxiliary hydraulics. So that really drove to that capability to do a lot with your hands in one spot, kind of maintaining control over the machine and driving that versatility of a variety of different attachments. So all of that was something we recognized, not that necessarily someone else did, that hadn't done before, but we wanted it standard because we knew what the skid steer and compact track loader industry did, and we wanted to drive to that. One of the other big things that we did is along the lines of two lines, I should say, or two aspects of increasing functionality and versatility is we gave the machine an operator presence switch and setting configurations. And I say configurations because there's two. You can go ahead and jump off the machine, and if you don't do a sequence of controls quickly enough, the auxiliary hydraulics will shut down. But we know that there are some applications that you can plug in hydraulic control or tools that are hand operated. And so by doing that, like a hand breaker, by doing that, you can jump off the machine, you can press a sequence of switches, and then you can go ahead and run the auxiliary hydraulics while you're off of the machine. You can go one step further and actually keep the loader functions moving with another set of sequences. So you can stand to the side and let that machine crawl up the trailer ramp or crawl up a curb or a precarious situation that you don't necessarily want to be standing on the machine for. And so you can have that machine controlled much more nicely alongside the machine and be able to do that safely. Okay. So that's one thing that we did. We also spent a lot of time on the CII coupler face. CII, Common Industry Interface. That's the acronym for CII. And when we get into that, one jumps to the conclusion that it is standardized, like a skid steer coupler face is. That's been around for many years in the industry. We recognize that there is no standard to it. There is no SAE or ISO standard to that coupler face. And there are nuances in just about everybody's coupler face based on how it's welded up or the dimensions that it fits that create complexity across different other OEMs or different attachment suppliers. So we spent a tremendous amount of time gathering data, emulating or replicating what those dimensions and details are so that we could try to drive to a coupler face that fits the most attachments. We know that people are renting attachments, people are buying attachments. They might have various brands of the CII coupler based on other machines that they run. Maybe it's another brand of MTL mini track loader, or maybe it's a small articulated loader or something else. So we know that versatility of using the attachments only comes with being able to couple to the attachments, right? You need that capability. So we actually went through iterations in that first year, basically, or I should say in the design process, and even as recently as in the last 6 months, of refining that coupler face so that we can say that we match or allow connectivity, which is secure connection of the attachment to the machine in most situations. And that was a tremendous amount of work that we went through. That was afforded to us by simply coming into it as a second or third, player in the market. Further down the line, if you're setting it and coming into it and launching a new product, you can launch that, but it doesn't always come out nice, because then you've got to learn and you've got to adapt after the fact. And then you've got to satisfy all those customers that might have bought the first iteration or second iteration. Case and the TL100 already comes to you with that capability to attach up to so many different attachment types and brands. So we're really proud of that fact and putting the effort and the legwork in to make sure that we've got that designed into our system from day one.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I mean, and that is such a huge part of it. And I think too, a lot of the things that you kind of touched on there really come from that place of kind of like considering what is available and like how can we put like specifically like a case stamp on it that that touches on the things that are important to you guys specifically in the design of your other machines, and trying to make sure you're carrying over those values and everything into that. But then also that do come from that kind of like 2020 is hindsight is 2020, where you're able to see like maybe where you feel like you can address some of those things that are currently unaddressed in the market. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I'm curious about is tell us about kind of the width of this machine and the ground pressure. That combination is one of the trickier aspects about developing these machines, because you can go one way of like trying to make it the most narrow thing possible to try to get into as many openings as possible. But obviously, as you decrease the footprint of where that weight is being applied, that's going to increase the ground pressure, which, mm-hmm. given the fact that these are using a lot of sensitive terrain where you don't necessarily want to mess up grass or sod or something like that, then that becomes another kind of design challenge. Where did you guys kind of land on that, and kind of take us through a little bit of your reasoning behind those things?
Absolutely. We knew that we wanted to offer two different track styles. So we've got the two different track widths available from the factory. Okay. And those give you, obviously the wider track width is there to go ahead and give you more stability, more traction, and more transfer of power to the ground, right? But then we also have the narrow track width, which gives you just more drive and literally more, ability to kind of dig in and drive power through the ground. So when we talk about it, we've got a 7-inch track and a 10-inch track. And the overall width of the machine is basically 35 inches for the 7-inch track and 40, just a hair over 40 inches, so less than 41 inches for the wide 10-inch track. And between those two, we're able to go ahead and drive, a narrow entry into like a 36-inch yard gate or something like that. With the narrow track. So depending on the application, the customer that's buying it, they can choose to go to the 7-inch, the narrow track width. Or if they're not constricted on where they're operating, many choose to go to that wide track width. The difference in those is that with more track on the ground, if you choose the 10-inch track, you are dropping your ground pressure by over 1 PSI. So the narrow track is just under 6 PSI total, 5.9. And the wide track, I believe, is just over 4.5 PSI. So, and that's kind of where we approached it from. Also, one thing to keep in mind, depending on, if you're driving the case or if you're one of the other brands out there, when you change that track selection, some of our competitors have that track ability to choose a different size track. And if you do, then you have to be careful about what your suitcase weights are doing, right? You have to make sure that the suitcase weights aren't necessarily outside the track dimensions based on what you're operating and how you're running the machine or where you need to get it in. So we tailor our 7-inch track and 10-inch track with two different suitcase weight configurations, adding more weight to the wider track. So your ground pressure is 4.5-ish. I think it's 4.6. And your ground pressure is that, but that's also based on a heavier operating weight with the machine. So, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. No, man. I mean, and I think too, it's I think that the math that we were just kind of talking about is one of the more interesting aspects of this in terms of like it's what's interesting to me about it is like you've got one machine that you're saying, okay, I want this specific capability of 1,000 pounds at it, and with this machine, there's just like so many different ways that you can come at it, and like the segment, even if you restricted it to that 1,000 pound, part of the segment, you'd get like, 4, 5, 6 wildly different products based on like how they think the best way to go with that 1,000 pounds. And it's a really cool segment of the industry just for that, because I feel like everybody's going to find like the machine that kind of like, fits the best needs of that. And obviously, as you guys
Absolutely.
kind of move forward, you'll find new solutions and stuff to that as well, to where maybe you can find like, better and better compromises through all those levers that you guys can pull. But like, no, like, thank you for taking us through that. I think that's super helpful for everybody as they're kind of going through that that research process of everything. And so, um, when you think about kind of like the rest of the segment, and we kind of take into consideration like all of the features that we've talked about so far. Um, Tell me, what's one of the things that, what are the top 2 or 3 things that you think really kind of make the TL100, or maybe what are some of the things that you guys have already heard from customers about the TL100 that are kind of making it, set apart from an increasingly crowded segment?
Yeah, absolutely. The auxiliary hydraulics, things like that. The coupler plate has already been recognized by our dealers because obviously coming into it, they kind of say, they approach a customer that might have one of those other brands, and they can kind of say, look, I can guarantee our machine fits up to that other brand's attachment or what attachments you have. They'll have that brief conversation, and they've got a list of those that they can go out and say, yes, ours fits there. So that's something we're proud of. We're happy to say. And even Case is trying to drive the conversation within AEM to go ahead and see if we can create an industry standard for these small MTLs, right? We're trying to get some of our partners, our friends in the industry to kind of join in and have that conversation and say, why don't we drive to a formal industry standard for the CII coupler face? So we're trying to drive that movement, that conversation to create a better situation for our customers. So that's something we're proud of. The other thing is that engine tip over and just serviceability and reliability of the machine overall. So if you've been on one of these, and I know you have, you might stand on that platform, and depending on the brand, you're going to feel suction across your back, across the back of your legs, kind of where that grate is, just in front of your shins, or you might even feel the wind blow across that. And depending on when you're operating that machine, warm weather or cold weather, you're going to feel a lot more air on some of the other brands out there. Case kind of designed around that. We put the cooling up front in the machine, which gave us a very low angle of approach on the machine. But we moved that cooling system from the rear, right where you're standing, up front. And so we've got a fan mounted towards the front. So you will get airflow through that rear grate where you're standing, but you'll get just as much through the side of the machine, pulling that air through the engine, okay? What that does is that benefits the operator in very warm temperatures or very cold temperatures. Some of those engines have pusher fans, some of them have puller. And what that means is, depending on the machine, you're going to have a high amount of airflow flowing across your legs. Now, if that airflow is pulling from outside of the machine into the engine across your legs, into the engine compartment, you're going to cool your legs heavily in cold weather. Or you're going to warm your legs heavily in hot weather if it's a pusher fan from the engine compartment out through the rear gate, right? So that is something we're also very proud of. By just orientating the systems inside that belly pan, inside the chassis, we're able to have much more efficient airflow and keep that hot and cold temperature off of the operator, right? Fighting the elements is half the battle in our industry, right? We see more and more cab adoption, more and more creature comforts, like heated, grips and things like that on snowmobiles and stuff like that. And so from that, we want to make the operating environment as comfortable as possible. And that was something we put a lot of time and effort into, and we really designed around that. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think too, like the point about opting for more and more cabs is a good one. And then, but going back to like what you were saying at the very beginning of our talk here, some of the really attractive things about this machine segment, the ability to hop on and off, the sight lines that you're getting to the tool, the transportability, and when you find out all of that is capable with like maybe even tools that you already have for other kind of skid steers, or or you're thinking of new tools, and just having that ability to kind of see a little bit better. And I'm really one of the things on the TL100 that I was impressed by was you guys starting to work to include a little bit of that remote, off platform kind of control into it, which is interesting that you guys got there, because I mean, again, like so much of the benefit of this thing is that you can just hop on it and stand there. But there's so much, obviously, right? Like so many applications. If you're trying to like horizon this thing out and see like, okay, what are some of the biggest industries right now that are opting for these machines and might be doing it in kind of like less than ideal situations, or maybe there's just like a lot of repetition, right? And like the load and carry aspect, they're great. They can be great tool carriers, but they can also be great little material handlers, kind of moving things around and stuff too.
Yep.
And so yeah, there's a lot of kind of like I think cool stuff to kind of come, because I think obviously like things have reoriented around this 1,000 pound capacity, but like looking forward to the future, it's bound for that to go up or down kind of, and for everybody to start now extending their lineups out as well. So like it'll be really interesting to kind of see how things improve right now. And I'm interested to see kind of like with all the excitement, like just how much market share, I don't know if that's even the right word to say, but just kind of like it, because I feel like they could be a complementary machine too. Like maybe you have the skid steer for certain things or the CTL for certain things, and you have this little mini skid for certain things. But well, Brad, with all of that, I'll let you. Is there anything else that you wanted to add here at the end of the conversation about the TL100, or to remind folks of, or anything about the future development of this machine or the segment that you kind of wanted to leave us with?
Sure, absolutely. And I'll mention a couple different things. One, in that these segments you were just talking about, right? We're seeing an expansion of this product into the mechanized, diesel operated, world of construction equipment inside building renovation. And like mini excavators that are doing, plumbing work inside buildings because of how they can retract their tracks down to 36-inch width and get inside a doorway, these MTLs, these mini track loaders, these stand-on skid steers really are enabling more work to be done by contractors renovating old buildings and, construction site cleanup and things like that, to where there used to be people just doing it manually, right? So it improves the efficiency of how the material is being moved. You talked about, just creating more opportunity for the guy, for the operators, in the sense of, let's get a large capacity bucket, light material bucket, to put all that construction waste into, right? And run it out to the dumpster and do it twice as quick or 3 times as quick. So that's something that we're really seeing expansion of. You'd never take a skid steer or a compact track loader or even a compact wheel loader into some of these jobs, because you could never get it in and make it maneuverable inside. So we're really excited about what that is doing, especially with how much people are renovating old spaces now. not just simply tearing it down, raising it and putting something new there. Okay. So that's first. The second thing is there is expansion in this industry, right? You talked about how simple it is to jump on and off. We talked about that at length. I think that is something that, Case itself prides itself in, and we talk a lot about practical innovation. I should have mentioned that earlier about the different things that went into the design attributes and practically innovating the machine, not just innovating for the sake of innovating, but driving greater efficiency, use, function to the machine, much like we discussed in the CII coupler, design. But when we look at it, these machines are practically innovating the industry, right? They're allowing someone to operate easily, to transport it easily, and you mentioned it too, jump on and off very easily, right? It's very functional. I run it. It's a smaller engine, so it naturally is quieter on a job site, right? You don't have this huge engine running and putting out all this noise. So the smaller engine can naturally run at a quieter RPM, making everybody around it more comfortable. And this product line is really a practical innovation to our industry. So we see the product evolving. We see our offering in the industry evolving, and there's more to come on that in the coming months. But it is something that we're excited to be part of now. We're excited to get involved, and our dealers are very excited to have a product that kind of competes with these other brands and competes very well based on what we have to offer. So I look forward to the future of it. I look forward to what Case already has and what Case might be bringing out down the road. And I just thank you very much, Wayne, for your time today and being able to speak about it.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it too, Brad. Yeah, I'm excited to see what comes. I mean, I think one of the cooler things about these little machines is like they impart a little bit of that flexibility. You feel faster, in certain jobs with these machines. You just do, like that ability. I mean, landscapers and the guys that are actually like cutting grass have had that. They've kind of had this experience for a while now with kind of the with hopping on and off a stand on, and like you see kind of like how that has changed. Yeah. Like so many of those businesses where those guys might have, let's say you've got 5 guys to a yard who are just kind of sweeping through a neighborhood. A couple of them might be on some of the stand-on units to get into tighter spaces. A couple of them might be on the ride-on units. Well, yeah. Maybe the other guy's kind of like cleaning up afterward. I think, and again, when I mentioned earlier about like the complementary nature of this thing, like it can be a workhorse or it can be just kind of like the guy that you send in to kind of do specific things, or like you mentioned too with the indoor construction, and that is becoming just more and more of a thing. And and it's awesome to see like us spending more time kind of like rehabbing old spaces and using doing a little bit more of that interior, and not forgetting another kind of like huge driver to the compact industry in general, which is that space is at a premium in the United States more than ever, especially in our larger metropolitan areas where a smaller tool can give you outsized benefits. So
there's more people, right? There's more people wandering around, and it's more conducive to a smaller, more nimble machine running around wherever you run it.
Yeah, it's cool. I think that the more of these kind of like tools that can get into more specific situations that we have, the better. And I think it's very emblematic of just kind of like the compact segments kind of growth in general. It's a really cool machine. Like I said, I could talk to you about this all day, Brad, but I'm going to let you go, get back to your actual job. Thank you so much, man, for taking some time today to talk us through the TL100, man.
No, thank you for your time. I appreciate it as always. Enjoy catching up with you, Wayne. So let me know if there's any other questions. I appreciate your time again. Thanks from Case.
Will do, Brad. Thanks so much, man. Have a good one.
Yeah, bye-bye.
All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this conversation on Machine Heads interviews. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you so much again to our guests for joining us today for this great conversation on mini skid steers. Look, if you like this video, found it interesting in any kind of way, or if it's helping you make your next buying purchase, do us a favor and hit that like button below. It helps us bring you more content like this. Do us another favor, subscribe to the Compact Equipment YouTube channel here on YouTube, or head over to YouTube if you're watching this on our website. And if you're not on our website, be sure to check out Compact compactequip.com, where you can find a lot more coverage just like this of the compact equipment industry. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.